Hello guys, I hope you're doing well. I know it's been a while since I posted a video, but I wanted to come back here to do my June wrap up. It is currently June 25th, so it's not quite the end of the month, but I wanted to just go over the books that I've already read this month, and then I'm hoping to finish at least one more book, maybe two, before the end of the month. So without further ado, let's just get started with the first book that I finished in the month of June. So the first book that I finished was actually an audiobook, and it's Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know by Adam Grant. If you would have chatted with me like right after I read this book, I may have more opinions on it, but honestly, as like time has kind of gone on since I've originally read this book, I just don't really think about it all that much, even though I do think it was a really good book. As I said, I listened to this on audio. It was read by the author, who is a psychologist, I believe, and it's a really interesting book about the power of thinking again and how humans can get really lost in their beliefs about the world and about their opinions and things. And it's just about like critical thinking and being open to new ideas and expanding the way that you think, and understanding that actually rethinking things can be beneficial, and also just to see where your blind spots are in life and where you kind of get just tunnel vision in your own opinion. I honestly think a lot of people should be reading this book just because I think it's so important to expand your knowledge and worldview. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I read in general, because I'm always wanting to learn and explore and think about new things in a different way. And that's why I love books, because we get this whole universe of ideas and things and opinions, and yeah, that's why I love reading. So I did really like this book. I think it's really interesting. I'm actually going to have my boyfriend read it because I think it's a book that he would really like. And I do think it's obviously it's like a very popular book and many people do like it. I think there were points in the book where I was like wishing it was like a little bit less sciencey and more applicable to like everyday life and the individual person. I think sometimes when I read books by psychologists, which you'll see kind of later on in this video, they kind of get trapped in these like studies and stories of people instead of like allowing the reader to know how they can change their own personal behavior. And I know that may not be like the point of why they're writing the book, but sometimes when I'm reading, I'm like, okay, well, how does this apply to me specifically without me having to like figure it out from these like very abstract things that you're saying? So overall, I really like this book. It's definitely worth a read. The audiobook was really good. Just like not a book that I was like blown away by, but I do think that the concepts and the things that I learned in the book are really important and really interesting. So the next book that I finished in June was Love's Executioner, Other Tales of Psychotherapy by Irvin D. Yalom. So I actually own this book. If you remember, I got it from thrift books and it came like very damaged, but I lent it to my boyfriend because he also really likes reading books about therapy, and I think I left it at his place, so I don't like physically have it with me. But I really like this book. This is like the type of book that I like to read. Irvin Yalom is a psychiatrist and he practices as a psychotherapist, and basically it is a book about therapy where the book is split up into 10 different sections. So each section is a different patient that he helps. So Love's Executioner, the reason why it's called that is because that's what the first story is called, which is basically about this woman who's like fallen madly in love with her therapist like 7 years ago and can't get over it. And so he talks about that, and then there's like many other stories in the book as well. So I really like this book just because I really love psychology, and I really love just like diving into the mind of humans and talking about their feelings and the life experiences that they've been through. I feel like with therapy books like this, the reason why I really like them is because I feel like they go over a diverse amount of people, if that makes sense. Like I feel like there's so many different stories, and I feel like you can find like bits and pieces of yourself woven into these different people, but they have ultimately all had like very different life experiences. And I mean, some of the stories like really stood out to me. Like one story that I really liked was about, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but this woman was in a room with her therapist and a hypnotist, and she smiled twice during her hypnosis session. And each person, her therapist, and the hypnotist, all had different interpretations of what those two smiles meant. And I really like that because it just shows how three individual humans that were all going through the same experience or were in the same room together had completely different viewpoints or opinions of what actually occurred. So I thought that was really interesting, and there's just like a bunch of little tidbits like that. And I really love just learning about people's stories. I think that's also why I love reading. I love just reading about real and true stories, which for now is really rooted in nonfiction, but I'm really hoping to get into fiction again, which I will talk about later on in this video. But I really love this book. He's becoming one of my new like fave authors. This is only the second book I've read by him, but he has like a ton. I swear he's like the Stephen King of psychology and therapy books. So I'm hoping to read a lot more by him, but I ultimately really love this book. And it's a book that I probably will think about over the course of the next few years of my life. So the next book I already returned from the library, so I don't have it in my hands anymore, but it's How to Meditate, A Practical Guide to Making Friends with Your Mind by Pema Chodron. If you don't know who Pema Chodron is, she is an American-born Tibetan Buddhist nun. She's pretty famous. She was actually on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. I think that's how I first learned about her. I'd never read a book by hers, but I've been really getting into meditation recently, so I wanted to read a book about it just to kind of like deepen my practice, I guess. So she obviously talks about meditation, the breath, posture, you know, the advantages of meditation. I liked this book, like obviously not the most like insane book that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Obviously, like I think meditating is better than like reading about meditation, although I did take some things away from it. I guess the one thing that's just coming to my mind right now that I'll probably take with me is that a lot of people, including myself, think about meditation as something to kind of like zen out and to relax and just to like feel happy. But that's actually like not the true purpose of meditation. Although meditation can bring that to your life, I think that people, including myself, kind of discount some of the things that can come up for you during meditation. And meditation is just a really great way to process your emotions. So there may be a day where I meditate and a lot of things are coming up for me and I feel emotional, and then I come out of my meditation and I may not feel like relaxed and zenned out and happy, but I was able to kind of work through some of the things that I was feeling. And I think for me that was getting lost in my practice because I kind of just wanted it as a thing in my life where I was just feeling happy and relaxed and easing my anxieties. But there also can be a lot of healing that comes from it as well. So that's something that I learned from the book is like, don't be upset if things come up for you in meditation, and actually deeper meditators usually do have those things that come up for them, and you work through them on your meditation pillow or a chair or the couch or wherever you meditate. So I like this book. Won't think about it a ton. I still need to keep up with my meditation practice, but I am glad that I was like interested in something and then I went out and found a book that was on the topic that I'm interested in. But yeah, it was a decent read. So another topic that I've wanting to explore this month was sleep, because I've been having a hard time sleeping through the night or just getting like a good night's sleep in general. So I was like, why not read a book about it? Which I've learned, you don't have to read a book about everything you're interested in. You could just read a blog post, right? Like sometimes books give you more information than you actually care about. And that's kind of what I felt like happened with this book, which was Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker, who is a neuroscientist and a sleep expert. And as from the title, this book goes into all things about sleep, why we sleep, the health benefits of sleep, dreams, the effects and how bad like sleeping pills are. And yeah, probably a little bit too much information about sleep. I don't know like how interested I was in the topic. Still glad I read it because I did learn a lot, and I feel like I do sometimes like will pull facts from this book, even though I think the book was like it was readable for like a non-science person, but like it was like a little heady at times, and I was kind of like slogging through it. But I'm glad that I finished it, because I knew that I'd get more satisfaction out of finishing it than DNFing it, which was true. So yeah, as I said, this book is about sleep. He goes into like, basically sleep is a good thing. I mean, he kind of repeats that over and over and over again. The health benefits of sleep, goes into like things like Alzheimer's and all of these things, how sleep can be so powerful. I was like really slogging through the book, and then I got to the section on dreams, and I really liked that section because I think dreams are really interesting. My only issue, this is the thing with reading by psychologists versus therapists. They're very like different types of perspectives, especially like a research psychologist. He's not a psychotherapist. I felt like he really gets into the mechanics of dreams, like what is a dream, why do we dream, and doesn't really like explore the emotional experience or the feelings that humans have that can be evoked by dreams. And I know that he doesn't get into it because there's not like really any scientific findings. I mean, everyone is a different person, and feelings are really hard to like nail down in science, but I feel like the humanistic aspect, this is what I was talking about earlier. I just feel like sometimes these like really abstract ideas kind of like don't really keep in mind like the individual's experience and feelings and their thoughts. And I just feel like sometimes you have to like bring it down to like a human level instead of just creating it and making it super like sciencey and like a little bit unreachable. Maybe that's just my opinion. I still liked the dream section, just wasn't as like deep. But again, I think that's just because there's no science behind it. I mean, how a person reacts to a dream they've had is an individual experience, but I just find that more interesting than like just dreams, you know, from like a macro level. But I did like this book. So I was really looking to get like advice on how to sleep better, which literally I read this entire book, which is a hefty book, for it's like, you know, over 300 pages. And then finally I got to the section I wanted, which was the appendix, 12 tips for healthy sleep. And so the first tip that he gives, and he says it's the most important, just in case you're curious, is to stick to a sleep schedule. So basically meaning go to sleep at the same time every night and then wake up the same time every morning. He says that out of all of the 12 tips, that's the most important. Is it possible? Do you guys do that? Do you have a sleep schedule? Because I definitely go to sleep at different times and I wake up at different times, and maybe that's why I have a messed up sleep pattern. But overall, this book was fine. I'm glad I finished it. I'm glad I read it. If you're interested in sleep, I mean, if you're really interested, read this book. If you're like kind of interested, want to like have better sleeping habits, read a blog. That's all I have to say. So after I read Why We Sleep, I kind of was like looking back at my reading month, and I was like, okay, I'm reading a lot of like therapy and psychology books, which I know are things that I'm interested in, but sometimes they can be just like a little sloggy to get through, or like sometimes they're too deep and emotional. And I was just like, I kind of just want to read for fun. What a concept. I feel like I don't read for fun enough. So the next book I'm going to talk about, and hopefully when I come back and chat with you guys at like the very end of the month about the books that I finish, it will be all fun books, right? So the next book I picked up, if you've been watching my channel, you know that one of my favorite books of all time is This Love Story Will Self-Destruct by Leslie Cohen. I've talked about it a lot on my channel. This was her debut novel that came out in 2018, and ever since I read it, I have been waiting so long for her next book to come out. I heard that she was having another book come out, and then it got postponed, I think, because of COVID. And then finally, my library, this book came out in April, okay, and I just got it in June. That's how long it took, but I finally got this book in my hands. It's fiction, by the way. This is a fiction book, and it's called My Ride or Die, as I said, by Leslie Cohen. And I mean, it was okay. It was okay. a little disappointing. I knew that this book was not going to live up to, you know, her first book, because I really connected with that, but I was like, I just want like a fun, light read. And this book was definitely that. It was like kind of rom-com-y, you know, like contemporary, but not, I hate saying this, but it wasn't quite the quality I was looking for. And I think her writing has like so much potential, and I just like don't think it quite hit it with this book. So if you want to know what this book is about, it's about two friends, Amanda and Sophie. Amanda is a lawyer who does really well in her professional life, but she crumbles at the slightest sign of a common cold. And then Sophie is an aspiring artist who has lived all over the world and doesn't crumble, period. I don't know if that's actually true, because she definitely did crumble. I mean, don't we all crumble in our lives? But so they basically decide to have this pact where they're kind of at this point in their lives where they're like dissatisfied with their relationships with men. So they have this pact where they are going to kind of be their own life partners and have men just be kind of like a side thing that they do on the side for like crushes or whatnot, and not actually like devote their lives to men, but they instead like will devote their lives to each other. So it's like a friendship pact. And so they decide to like have this alliance. They move in together. They're like renovating this brownstone in Harlem. This is set in New York. But then all of a sudden, one of them starts getting into a relationship, and this pact or alliance is starting to kind of crumble for both of them, and they kind of have to like deal with that. So basically it's like a friendship alliance, rom-com type of thing. So on the back of the book, it says this sentence, which I actually really liked. Says, enough pretending that traditional relationships work for everyone, enough fantasizing about an old-fashioned ideal. I actually thought that was like a really interesting concept that was brought up in the beginning of the book, and I did not feel like it was explored as much as it should have been. This kind of like idea of like people getting really tired of traditional ideals in relationships and not feeling as though they're like keeping up with the Joneses, I guess you could say. I wish that was explored a little bit more, just because I know that being young, there's a lot of pressure to do certain things by certain ages in your life, and they're in their early 30s, so they're definitely like within that age range of like the pressure of, you know, being successful, getting married and having babies. And anyway, I felt like that theme could have been explored a little bit more. It was okay. Like, I thought that the book, like, something that I didn't like about it was the dialogue. I felt like was really weird. Like, she wrote the way that people talked, but when you like put that down on paper, it's like, okay, this is like kind of all over the place. And the climax scene in like the middle end of the book was like so funny. It was like one of the weirdest things I've ever read in a book, and I'm not even kidding you. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, in the small chance you probably won't that you're going to pick this book up. But yeah, I thought this book was average, not my favorite. I did read it quickly. It was like a really easy, light read, which is like kind of what I was looking for. But it didn't quite do it for me. I wish she explored, again, as I said, like concepts that I can actually take away into my own life, but it's fine. It was a disappointment. I was expecting a little bit more, you know, maybe like more of a 4 out of 5 star level instead of like a 3 out of 5, which is maybe where I'd put it. I also like don't want to read about home renovations. I'm not interested in it. So that was another thing. But those are all the books that I finished so far in the month of June. Hopefully I'll come back in the next clip, and hopefully I'm planning on finishing 1, maybe 2 more books this month. And then that's it. So I'll just keep you updated with the books that I will soon finish in the month of June. So I wanted to finish up my June wrap up with a couple other books that I finished in the month of June, obviously. So I was kind of thinking about the last 2 books that I read, and I told you that I was trying to read more fun reads for the rest of the month. These are actually both memoirs, and they're obviously like very different in nature, but I feel like they both kind of have that attitude of living life off the beaten track. So the next book that I ended up finishing in the month of June was The Rule Diaries by Hilary Burton Morgan. And this book is basically about, it's a memoir of her, I wouldn't say her whole life, but her adult life. So if you don't know, because I didn't, she is an actress. She was on One Tree Hill, White Collar, and other very big shows. I honestly didn't know about her as an actress before I read this book. I didn't really even know who she was. But the reason why I wanted to pick this book up is because I've always had this dream of living or working on a farm, or just living in more like rural country. And first off, this cover is absolutely gorgeous. And I just wanted to know what it was like to kind of live in a beautiful setting and be on a farm. And she basically talks about her life as an actress in Hollywood and how she and her husband, Jeffrey Morgan, who's also in the Hollywood business, they both moved to a farm in upstate New York, in Rhinebeck, New York, which makes me really want to go there because it just sounds like such a cute town, and just their experiences living on the farm. So this could be anything from raising alpacas and also talking a lot about the community. So the community of Rhinebeck is a very close-knit, tight community, and they talk about buying a candy shop that's local, getting involved in charities. It's kind of like Gilmore Girls-esque, where like everyone knows each other's names and everyone's just getting involved in each other's business. And I just thought the book was really cute. So she talks about really sweet things like flowers that she grows on the farm and the animals. And then she also talks about hard things like infertility and struggles that she had in her marriage. I really loved listening to her story. She read the audiobook, so it was cool to hear her own story from her voice, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super cute, very fun and light, with obviously heavy topics as well, and kind of gave me a little bit of taste of farm life and what it means to kind of live that country lifestyle. And it makes me jealous, wishing that I could learn how to garden or craft more, or do something with my hands. And I love how she just kind of gets her hands wet in many different things. But I really did like this book. It was a really fun audiobook and I enjoyed reading it. So the next book I'm going to talk about, which is the last book that I finished this month, I actually finished it this morning. This is a book that has been on my radar for a while, but I never wanted to pick it up because it didn't have great Goodreads reviews, but I was just like, screw it, I'm going to pick it up. So that book is The Good Girl's Guide to Getting Lost, a memoir of 3 continents, 2 friends, and 1 unexpected adventure by Rachel Friedman. This book is about a girl who graduates from college, the book first starts out, I think it was like a summer between her junior and senior year of college. She goes to Ireland and meets this girl named Carly, and she forms this unlikely friendship with this girl who's total adventurer, really fun. And so she basically is living in Ireland. She comes back home, finishes her senior year of college, then she goes to visit Carly in Australia, because Carly is Australian, lives with her family, gets to explore Australia, and then later they meet up in South America, and they go all over South America. It was like Chile, a lot of it primarily was in Bolivia, Peru, go to many different places. So Rachel is a girl who was studying music at a music school her freshman year and then transferred to another school because she decided she wasn't going to pursue music for a career. When she graduated from college, she kind of didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. All of her friends were moving to Manhattan, getting the corporate jobs, and she just had absolutely no idea what she was doing. She ended up traveling around the world and had this huge travel bug that was just bloomed inside of her, and she just loved learning about culture and adventure. This book is really just like a self-exploration of her life during her travel journeys. So she was gaining more confidence and being more adventurous, and she was learning a lot about herself and her friend. So I like this book. It was really fun to learn about all her adventures, especially because I haven't been traveling a lot recently, especially abroad. But one of my main issues with this book is I felt like it was too travel diary, and I felt like she needed to kind of make it more into a story, because it really felt like she did this and then she did that and then she did this and then she did that, and it was almost like, because I'm not there experiencing these things with you and you're not like elaborating on like your adventures, you're just kind of giving me a snapshot of everything. It was kind of hard to follow. I was personally more interested in her personal development through these experiences than I was through these like little quick moments over time. But it was a fun read, especially if you want like kind of like a taste of adventure and to be able to explore all these different countries. Not like the best book ever, but it was okay, and I'm glad that I finally ended up reading it, and it makes me really want to travel more, or at least live abroad. So it was fun overall. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. Let me know if you've read any of those books or what you think. Also, I'm just kind of curious. I want to gauge what you kind of want from my channel. I've been kind of at a loss of like what types of videos to film. So obviously I've been doing like my wrap-ups and all that kind of stuff, but you can totally let me know in the comments down below if you have a preference for like reading vlogs, if you like sitting down talking videos, if you want to see more like lifestyle videos or what it's like to live in New York. Honestly, this channel can be, you know, whatever I want it to be. It doesn't have to be purely a book channel. I've kind of thought about exploring other avenues as well, although I would like books to be incorporated because that is a passion of mine that I will always have in my life. But please let me know your feedback. It would help me out a lot. And I'm genuinely curious to know what you have to say, and I want to make content that you like and enjoy and makes you happy. So please leave those comments down below. But thank you so much for getting all the way until the end of this video. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you guys in the next one.